One of the most famous symbols of masculinity in the world didn't begin as a man, or soldier, or even a cowboy. It began as a cigarette brand associated with such a soft and elegant image that it was hard to imagine it would ever become a symbol of the strong American man. But within just a few years, Marlboro evolved from a simple cigarette brand into something that seemed to exist almost everywhere. In wars, in Formula One races, in Hollywood movies, and the massive billboards above American highways, which became almost impossible to drive for long without seeing its red and white colors towering over you. At one point, even some American medical advertisements showed doctors casually smoking Marlboro. During an era when smoking was associated more with confidence, calmness and control than with danger. But the real transformation wasn't in the cigarette themselves. It was in the image the company slowly started building around the men who smoked them. The cowboy, for example, barely spoke. He didn't look like a Hollywood celebrity. He was calm, standing in the middle of desert, horses and dust, as if he came from an older and harsher world than the modern America rapidly changing after World War II. And over time, millions of men start copying even the smaller details of that image. The way he dressed, the way he stood. Silent type of masculinity, the advertisement gave a special value too. At some point, Marlboro stopped selling just cigarettes. It started selling an entire fantasy about what it meant to be calm and capable of looking completely in control inside a world changing too fast. And that exactly what transformed it from a brand that was once close to disappearing inside the crowded American market into one of the most powerful culture machines in modern advertising. But to understand how Marlboro reached that level, we have to go back to the beginning. Before Marlboro became associated with cowboys and American masculinity, it was a small brand getting lost inside the overcrowded American tobacco market. There was a time when companies were fighting for people's attention in almost every direction. Radio, newspaper, billboards. Cigarette smoke was everywhere, to the point where it started feeling like a normal part of the American landscape itself. But in the middle of that world, Marlboro felt slightly out of place. Its advertisement had an image that felt too soft and too polite, while filtered cigarettes at the time didn't give off the raw feeling many men were looking for. Then suddenly, the entire atmosphere changed. World War II left America looking completely different from the country that entered it. Men came back from military camps and worshipped with a different mentality, more silent, more emotionally distant, and more attached to that cold type of calmness built under pressure and prolonged fear. And in the middle of that transformation, Marlboro almost started looking like a brand still trapped inside an older world that no longer matched new America rapidly growing after the war. And it became clear that the problem wasn't the cigarette themselves. The problem was that Marlboro didn't have the man this generation could see itself in. At that exact moment, the search began for an image that would almost reshape American culture itself. By the early 1950s, Marlboro looked like the remains of an old world that had already died, stuck in the middle of a new America that has just came out of war. The men returning from military camps and warships were no longer the same people who had left years earlier. A new type of man was slowly starting to emerge. Men who spoke less, who felt colder, men who tried to look composed even while the world around them was changing too fast. In the new world, Marlboro's old advertisement almost started feeling like something from a time that no longer exists. And that's exactly what Leo Burnt understood. The problem wasn't the cigarettes. People were already smoking. But America was searching for a new image of masculinity, an image millions of people could see themselves in, even if it wasn't completely real. At first, the company tried almost everything: sailors, workers, men with tattoos, as if they were desperately searching for any face capable of pulling Marlboro out of the world it was trapped in. But out of all of these attempts, a different kind of man slowly began to appear. He didn't explain himself, he didn't smile much. Even the advertisement themselves used strangely few words compared to most American arts at the time. He was simply standing there in desert and endless roads, surrounded by dust, like the last man still comfortable inside this new world. And strangely enough, it worked. No long slogans, no promises, not even an obvious attempt to convince people. Men weren't just buying cigarettes, they were buying a feeling. The feeling that you could look calm under pressure, strong without explaining yourself, and confident inside the world changing faster than you. And little by little, Marlboro started entering the American mind in a way far bigger than just an advertising campaign. The cowboy stopped being just a face printed on a cigarette pack. He became a complete model of the man post-war America was searching for, without ever seeing it directly. And from that point on, Marlboro stopped selling just tobacco. It started selling an image, and slowly, the image became more powerful than the real man themselves. And as the years passed, Marlboro stopped being just a successful American brand. The image that started with the cowboy escaped the advertisement and slowly entered people's everyday life in a way that felt both quiet and unsettling at the same time. Along American highways, it became almost impossible to travel very far without seeing the Marlboro Man on a massive billboard, silently staring into the distance with that cold expression, as if his face had become part of the American landscape itself. Gas stations, highways, even sports and movies magazines. And little by little, the influence started leaving the advertisement and entering people's daily behavior itself. Man didn't just start copying Marlboro through smoking. They copied the posture, the way the cigarette was lit, and the cold that shared. Even that feeling that you were supposed to look composed, no matter how fast or chaotic the world around you became. And the strangest part is that many of them weren't even aware of the influence at all. The image entered so quietly that it eventually started feeling natural, as if this type of masculinity had always existed. At the same time, Marlboro started entering worlds that carried the same kind of energy it was building. On Formula 1, for example, especially with McLaren, the red and white colors start appearing in the mellow of speed, engines and danger as if they naturally belonged there. And even after central laws began striking cigarettes advertising, some race cars still hinted at Marlboro through colors and design alone, as if the brand had become bigger than the logo itself. Hollywood followed a similar path. Marlboro didn't just rely on celebrities, it started creating its own icons. Figures like Darryl Winfield carried the same cold presence the company had been quietly building inside people's mind. A man who looked free, calm, and completely in control of himself no matter how much the world around him changed. And eventually the image escaped America itself. Young people in Europe and Asia who had never even seen a real cowboy still started feeling that this man represented something bigger than cigarette, freedom, presence, and the ability to look strong without saying much. Sometimes an image becomes more powerful than the reality itself. And at the exact stage, Marlboro stopped selling just tobacco, it started selling entire imagination, and millions of people slowly began living inside the picture that was never truly real in the first place. By the late of 1980s and early 1990s, it started becoming clear that the entire world had changed once again, but this time against tobacco companies themselves. The word cancer started appearing on television, newspaper, and inside couch rooms more than ever before, while governments began tightening restrictions on advertising and sponsorships, as if the same image that helped Marlboro growing into this massive force was suddenly revealing its other side to the world. But strangely enough, Marlboro didn't seem afraid in the way people expected. Even when certain advertisements started to disappear, the image had already entered people's imagination too deeply to keep needing constant explanation. And Formula 1, for example, logo slowly began disappearing because of new regulation. Yet the red and white colors alone were still enough for audience to instantly recognize who was there. Sometimes all it took was seeing the car from a distance, as if the brand had continued living inside people's mind even while the world was trying to hide it. And that's exactly what made Marlboro feel stranger than just a successful advertising story, because even people who fully understood the healthy risk of smoking, many of them still remained emotionally attached to the same image. The calm man, the free man, the man standing confidently inside the world becoming more complicated every year. Sometimes an image no longer needs to be real in order to influence people, and maybe that was the most dangerous stage Marlboro ever reached. It stopped selling just cigarette, it started selling entire feeling of identity. And the feeling of identity can sometimes become far more powerful than logic itself. And maybe that was the strangest thing Marlboro ever achieved in the end. Not that it sold millions of cigarettes or that dominated advertising raising in American culture for entire decades, but that it managed to make a certain image of masculinity feel completely natural, as if it had always existed. And maybe that's why Marlboro's remained more than just a brand. It became one of the most powerful culture machines modern media ever used to transform an image into an idea lived by millions of people.